Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to embark on a journey like no other. Welcome to the Glum Lot Podcast,
your go-to destination for a unique blend of recovery and discovery.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Mark. And in this podcast, we will endeavor to create a safe and uplifting space for our guests and listeners to share their stories with sincerity and a touch of humor.
Remember, we are not a Glum Lot. The Glum Lot Podcast is more than just a source of entertainment. It's a beacon of hope, proving that even in the darkest moments, recovery is possible. Every story we share carries the power to inspire positive change.
So buckle up, get ready to listen, and join us in discovering the strength that lies within every individual's journey. This is the Glum Lot Podcast, where humor meets hope. Brett, welcome to episode number 78
Hey,
of the
Mark.
Glum Lot Podcast.
It's good to be back in the studio.
Mm-hmm. It's good to be back in the States.
Yes.
And we'd like to remind our listeners to like, follow, subscribe, do whatever those people do.
Recommend,
right?
Yes. Get us some folks.
Or contact us at the Glum Lot Podcast at gmail.com and join the Facebook group, the Glum Lot Podcast Facebook group.
Yes.
So, anyway, today...
Do you have something good to tell me?
It's something interesting. I came across this post. I'm a member of the classic literature.
I love it.
Whatever you want to call it, group on Instagram. And something came across today that just really, I just thought, holy shit, that sounds like
Us.
an AA bottom right there.
Okay.
And it's by a guy called, written originally by a guy, a Nobel Prize winner called Albert Camus, and it's spelled C-A-M-U-S. So of course I'm like, hey, it's Albert Camus.
Yeah, of course.
And
Camus.
I looked him up to find out more about him, and he's French, and his name is pronounced Camus.
Camus.
Oddly enough, killed in a car accident.
Ooh.
Yeah. But anyways, here's the part of the literature from something called The Fall, and this is the excerpt. The true horror of existence is not the fear of death, but the fear of life. It is the fear of waking up each day to face the same struggles, the same disappointments, the same pain. Mm-hmm. It is the fear that nothing will ever change, that you are trapped in a cycle of suffering that you cannot escape. And in that fear, there is a desperation, a longing for something, anything, to break the monotony, to bring meaning to the endless repetition of days.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but this sounds exactly where I was at.
Me too.
In my last days.
Yep. I read that and I'm like, was this guy an alcoholic?
My God. Right?
Because I'm like, that spells that you're at a crossroads. Either the gift of desperation is going to get you into some type of recovery or attempt at it, or it's going to kill you because nobody can live that way for that long. That quiet, desperate, denial. I mean, it breaks you down, and you're going to people get to a point where they're just going to either drink themselves to death or kill themselves, or their behavior is going to be so bad they're going to be institutionalized or something, or you're going to reach out for help. And hopefully that's the way it goes. You reach out for help, but that desperation that spoke to me, man.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
like, I felt that.
Be interesting to find a passage in the big book that speaks to the opposite.
Yeah, about your life becoming amazing.
Yeah,
about your life,
because that's what we have
beyond
now.
your wildest dreams. I mean, anything's beyond this. That truly is.
Yeah, that hits hard because that brings me right back to when I was in bed, like stinking and rotten and hopeless.
It describes the hell of drinking and the hell of not drinking. It's like I'm out of options.
Yeah.
And this guy nailed it. And it makes me, I've never read his stuff, but I want to go back and read some, I think.
Yeah, we might be.
And he is not, it's not like he's an old, whatever. I think he was very popular in the 50s.
Oh, so that's fairly modern.
Yeah, and he's like a philosopher, Not a lot of philosophers around nowadays. I mean, there probably are, but you don't hear about
they call him crazy.
Yeah. So, anyways, that was my little tidbit
that was a
for
good
the day.
hit today, for sure.
Speaking of tidbits, we have a tidbit of an out-of-town guest that we are going to speak with remotely. Yes, someone that actually how did you get this person?
So I think if I remember right, I had put a post on the Facebook page about if anybody would be interested or knew of anybody that would be interested, and if you'd like to be considered as a future guest. And I think that just happened out of that. And we've been talking for quite a while. and she shared some of her story with me, and I was like, my goodness, that sounds like a perfect guest. Has had some service work, has all of the things that qualify us, and has done some good step work and is living on the other side now.
Yeah, and I just wanted to relate to listeners as well that don't think your story has to be completely wild or crazy. You know, we think of ourselves as garden variety, run-of-the-mill alcoholics, but our stories have something to offer.
Absolutely.
You know,
like I didn't have all the bad things, all those wild and crazy things, so I couldn't relate to those. It was the person like you who you consider yourself a high bottom drunk or whatever, but that's what made me relate because I didn't have all the accidents and destruction and all that, but I certainly was fucking miserable.
Yeah, if you're thinking about maybe contacting us to be a guest, please do it.
There's all types of alcoholics out there.
There are. So, but we'd like to welcome this one, and her name is Melissa. Welcome to the Glum Lot Podcast, Melissa.
Hey, Melissa.
Hi, guys.
We're so glad to have you with us, and we are recording this remotely because you are not in our area. And can we start with your sobriety date?
Sure. My sobriety date is November 9th, 2020.
Okay. And can we ask you about your first experience with the effects of drugs or alcohol?
All the nitty-gritty details.
Absolutely. My first experience with alcohol was actually when I was 4 years old.
Wow.
Excellent.
Yeah. I was that kid that was walking around the party and picking up people's drinks. So I guess you could say I've been an alcoholic my whole life. I was singing, I was dancing. My mom was freaking out.
At 4 years old because you were loose.
4 years old, yeah. Started doing zoomies up and down the hallway.
Nice.
And then got into my dad's cologne shortly after that.
What do you mean by that? Like drinking?
Got alcohol.
The cologne has alcohol in it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that, obviously, at like 4 or 5 years old. But I knew it smelled good.
Okay.
So I guess I figured it would taste good.
Oh, man. You're probably wrong about that one, weren't you?
I remember my grandfather talking about that.
And I got very
day.
sick.
Yeah.
Which would probably explain, I had my first stomach ulcer in 4th grade.
Jeez.
Wow.
Now, do you remember the first buzz you caught?
The first buzz I caught, that's when I was like 14.
Do you remember the feeling in your body and what you thought about it?
It was a tingling.
Okay.
It was a tingling sensation and a, wow, I can like do anything that I want right now.
Right.
As this arrogant little 14-year-old girl. And because we had a very Irish Italian family, so we had wine with dinner, and we were allowed to start drinking wine with dinner younger. And I quickly figured out that I could fill my glass with soda and I could go to the liquor cabinet. So I, as far as being an alcoholic, I was always figuring out ways to be manipulative to feel that sensation again because it was comfortable.
Yeah.
It was, I could fit in. I could, say things I didn't normally say or try to be funny.
And that that didn't naturally come to you, right?
Right. And because I was always at a place. I was always made fun of in school. I was always, I had the IEP. I was in drama club. And I mean, what
is the IEP?
I had a disability in school. I'm dyslexic and all this other fun stuff with comprehension.
Okay.
So I was in these special reading classes and math classes for science and everything else. And you're kind of a nerd when I was growing up if you were doing all that. Yeah. Although that's highly suggested now, which I agree with and support completely.
So you kind of start chasing this feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you're 14, so as your high school years progress, does your drinking progress?
it did. It progressed into as well using cocaine.
Okay. In high school.
No, the cocaine that came after high school.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
So in
weed?
high school, I was introduced to pot.
Yeah.
Um, I wasn't until about junior year when I got my veneers because my teeth were
Okay.
all screwed up, and I started getting boobs that I was even considered to be cute and like
Ah,
I could talk to and whatever all the bullshit is about because I hate bullying. I'm very big against it.
yeah.
And I love how people just switch it up as soon as you all of a sudden become a little bit different.
Right.
And so that's what I liked. I was different and I could drink now and I could go to the parties
You get
and
the
not feel
attention.
left out and go to prom. And then I ruined my prom.
How? What happened?
Ooh.
I got so drunk before prom that at prom I was passing out.
Oh.
And my one favorite teacher grabbed me and brought me to the bathroom and I threw up and she was like, "I'm worried about you. You need to wake up." And she made me wash my face and um I don't remember prom.
Mm. Did
Yeah.
you have a prom date?
I did and he was my ex at the time. So I'm pretty sure I probably ruined it for him too. Um and that is not okay either.
Yeah.
So, did you go to prom and you were just thinking, I'll just have a few drinks and I'll be chill and have a good time? Or did you just go for it?
Every time I drank, I went for it.
You went for it all the way. Okay. So, you
Yeah.
didn't have the intention of
Yeah.
just
So you
getting
drank
loosened up.
alcoholically from the
Yeah.
drop.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, immediately. As soon as I put alcohol in me, there was no stopping.
Besides the prom debacle, were there other consequences from your drug and alcohol use?
Yes, there were. I got into a college that I had desperately wanted to get into based on my audition
Mm.
because of musical theater. And I failed academically, but they let me in. And I got to college. And right before I left, I had overdosed on purpose to kill myself
Mm.
because I I was scared that I was going to screw up.
Yeah.
And then I got to college and I made friends and was drinking and more. Less pot smoking, surprisingly,
Okay.
but a lot more drinking. And we went to an off campus party the day before my birthday. And in, it was in the middle of Hartford, Connecticut.
Okay.
And not the best area. And so someone had went to the fight broke out and someone went to push my friend. So I pushed the kid back
Hmm.
and his girlfriend saw and three of her friends beat me up. So on my birthday, I ended up hungover and in the hospital with a bruised spleen and a minor concussion.
Oh, my goodness.
And then about 2 weeks later, I drank so much, I don't know what medications I took, and my mom showed up the next morning and said, "You're going home."
Mm. So you went home.
Yes, I did,
Did
and I was
anybody talk to you about your drug and alcohol use, or did you consider it like, this is not right, I got to do something about this? Did that occur to you at all?
I compared everything I did to what my father did. I have an alcoholic father, who I love, and because of this program, I can now have some sort of relationship with, but back then it was more like, well, if he can do it, why can't I? And I'm not as bad. I'm not an alcoholic like him. My mother tried very hard. My therapist tried very hard, but it wasn't until I came home from college. I went in 2016 to a hospital and I had to sit down and go through all of the wonderful drug and alcohol classes and mental health classes, and I hated it at first.
How did you end up going into this hospital?
I went in willingly.
So did your mother say, you should go talk to somebody about this way you're living?
Well, I had been living back with her again because
Yeah.
I came home and she wasn't going to tolerate the way I was drinking anymore.
Okay.
So I went and I got nothing out of it.
Was it kind of an outpatient thing?
It was inpatient.
Inpatient, okay.
Yeah.
But you just played the game.
I knew how to play the game.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. I went there 9 times and played the game.
Oh, shit.
And then would come home and, repeat. And then at one point I was living in a motel because everyone had just had enough of me. And I was very blessed that I had an ex-boyfriend that brought me an actual blanket and cleaning supplies because the hotel was nasty. And then my mom came and saw where I was living. And my brother thought that I was just couch hopping. And I had no idea where I was. And then they allowed me to come back to my brother's and sleep on the couch.
Now, at this time, are you drinking and using drugs?
Yes.
What kind of drugs are you dabbling in?
Cocaine and weed.
Okay. So you're drinking, you're snorting coke, you're smoking weed, you're basically living a life of being fucked up all the time.
Misery,
and you're very unhappy, and you're living in a shitty place.
Yeah.
So your brother, you find a way to move back in with your brother. Is he supportive of recovery, or?
He was supportive of me staying clean.
Okay.
At that point, I was involved with someone I shouldn't have been involved in, who had got me involved in the coke, and he became abusive. And one night he choked me out, and because I was in the state I was in and drunk and coked up, I went home and I cut, and I told my best friend, and she came over and made me tell my mom. And my brother found out, obviously. So a few months later, he found the guy, and someone else got in the way that shouldn't have, who knew us both. And my brother punched him, and it's illegal to punch someone in the face because I had not documented anything. So unfortunately, due to my using and my misconstrued ideas and just being fucked up, like,
he got
I
the
never
consequence.
reported it. Danny my brother ended up having to go to jail.
Oy. Yeah, that's tough.
So that made me feel guilty, which made me drink and do more.
Even more.
Yeah.
So where do things go from here? Your brother punches the guy in the face. He gets consequences. Your use is increasing, and like most of us, it's progressive. And you looking back, you can see that. What happened from there?
After that happened, I slowly started to realize that AA shit they were talking about didn't sound so terrible.
So you had exposure to it prior?
When I was previously in the hospital.
Okay, so they had that as part of the program.
Did you go to any meetings in the facility or anything?
They had someone come in every night.
Okay.
But I didn't hear them.
No,
just heard, I was just sitting there comparing everything to my dad. Being like, oh yeah, well, obviously he does that. Like, but then I had a revelation and things were bad enough that I didn't want to drink. I didn't want to live, but I didn't want to kill myself. And so I chose to go away. And I got back to the hospital that I always went to. And I said, I need to be here. I have a drinking problem. And the nurse that knew me looked at me and goes, oh, really? You think so?
Yeah, right.
So she's like, yeah, we've been trying to tell you that every time you're here.
The last
But
9
coming
times.
from
Yeah.
you, that
Right.
is a revelation, right?
10 times the charm.
So I did the program, but it took until the 3rd or 4th night of them coming in with meetings for me to be able to say anything, because I had to sit there and I wanted to listen this time. And I figured out there's a very big difference between just hearing and listening, because I was listening this time and I wasn't comparing. I was taking it in and saying, wow, I'm capable of that. I've done those things. I need to take responsibility. Like, so on that 3rd or 4th night when I admitted I'm Melissa, I'm an alcoholic, the floodgates just opened.
Wow.
And I cried for about 10 hours, and I sat in my room and I had a big book because one of the girls gave me one, and I read the On Awakening, and I just cried, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I really need help. Like, I really need help.
Was that a sense of relief to you?
It was a sense of relief, but I was scared shitless.
Sure.
I was so scared. I was like, how am I going to do this? Like, and I had been to meetings before, like, just because, and like, I am seeing people with like 30 years of time, and I'm like, that's what? Like, what? How?
Mm-hmm.
So it scared me. And so on my last day, when I talked to that nurse, I was like, I don't know what to do now. I can't leave. You have to write something up, so I have to stay here. And
How
she was
long?
like,
How long were you there?
14 days.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So at the end of the 2 weeks, you're like, I'm afraid to leave.
I was petrified. I asked her to write any note she could to make me have to stay there longer.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, you'll be okay. And she gave me a list of meetings in my area. And that was probably the key, because she pointed out the one that was happening that night and that my mom could go with me. And I hated going places alone, especially at that point. So the fact that my mom could come with me gave me the push to be able to go.
Sure.
Now
Was that fear because you were afraid you would relapse?
No, a fear that I still have sometimes, just because of my insecurities.
Yeah.
You'd
That
be
I
super
deal with.
uncomfortable and
Yeah,
Found
like
out.
yeah.
I like to know somebody's there already.
Okay.
That I
Yeah.
can go
So
and meet.
what happened at that meeting?
So I went, and
Because now
there's
you had a whole
all
room
these,
full of AA people, right?
yeah, and they were so happy, and I'm looking at them all like their friggin' nuts are on drugs. Like, I'm like, these people are high, Mom. Like, what are you doing? Like, she's like, Melissa. And then this wonderful woman comes up to me, and she introduces herself, and I'm saying hi, and my mom says hi, and she goes, would you like to read how it works? And she hands me this paper that looks like it's 1,000,000 words long. And I felt so terrible looking back now. I was so rude. I was just like, absolutely not. My mom just goes, Melissa. And she was like, no, it's okay. It's okay. How about you just read step 1? And not knowing it, looking back, that woman gave me that card on purpose.
Sure.
It was my first meeting outside of rehab, outside of any type of thing that I cared about. And giving me to read step 1, I had to read step 1 that night. And then I asked to read it the next time I went. And then a few meetings in, they were talking about sponsorship. And I was like, now what's this about? Now, this is 8.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I have not had a drink since.
Yeah.
However, when 2020 came up and we had COVID,
Yeah.
all the meetings had shut down, and I lost touch with my sponsor, and I saw my dealer in the gas station, and he was like, oh, I'll give you something. I got a little something for you for free. And now I had dealt with drinking. I had dealt with how to step away and walk away from that. But I had never told anyone or really dealt with the fact that I had been doing coke for a long time.
So
And
that
then I
hadn't come up.
stopped. Yeah. So when I was approached, I said yes.
Yeah, nobody knows about it anyway.
And that's what I thought. And
Yeah.
then I call him obviously immediately after, and I'm like, yo, let me meet up with you again. And it turned into something. And then thank God, my best friend Jenna figured it out. And I was on my way to Myrtle Beach with 2 other people, and we had weed on us. Because now I'm like, well, I can smoke. It's not as bad.
Of course, all those
And
justifications.
yeah. And we go to get on the bridge and the ferry, and the dogs immediately got us.
Oof.
So they had dogs. They had dogs there waiting.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Damn.
So
That's a
we
sign.
got
Ferry.
caught.
Right? What kind of ferry
Yeah,
is
right.
that?
I was so scared. I called my brother immediately. I said, "What do I do? What do I do?" I only had an eighth on me. The other girl had a pen, and the other girl had a bong, gummies, and weed. So he was like, "You'll be fine. They'll charge you separately. It'll be okay." They did not do that. They don't do that. That's a lie. They
Yeah.
combine everything in the car and they
Slap you
charge
all
you
with it.
all with it. So I'm freaking out. My mom's at home, just heard from my brother. My best friend Jenna shows up because she asked if she could talk to her. And my mom opens the door and has to hear, and she goes, "Oh, so did you hear they got arrested?" And Jenna goes, "Oh my God, no, no, like I was here to talk to you about something else, but now," and she goes, "Oh my God, what?" So Jenna basically told my mom that I was using again after she found out that I had gotten arrested.
Oh.
Ugh.
Now,
So-
luckily, you didn't have any coke on you when you got arrested,
Is
right?
Jenna
thank
still
God.
alive?
Thank God.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
So
because I got
was the
home.
weed thing just an appearance ticket for a misdemeanor?
It would have been if there wasn't
The
a pen and
Really?
the bong and the gummies.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Fast forward 4
So-
years and it's all legal.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Jesus.
Which is kind of weird.
Right? I know.
Yeah.
Now everyone's like,
That's not giving
just
you
go to the
permission.
store.
Yeah, holy
Jesus.
shit.
So did COVID really affect you? I mean, other than, seeing the dealer, right?
Oh,
Were
it
there any
did.
other effects
Yeah.
of
I
that
was
isolation
extremely
and stuff?
depressed. I was extremely depressed.
So the mental health stuff came into play.
Oh yeah, big time.
Were you the kind of person that just couldn't get into the online meetings?
I was.
Did you try?
I did, and I still do.
Yeah.
Actually,
Mhm.
I do
Okay.
still do it. Now I'm more inclined to. But during COVID, I just shut down.
Mm-hmm.
So you get popped with these charges, you're doing coke. What happens?
I get home and my mom approaches me on everything, and I don't lie for the first time ever. And I'm completely honest. And she
defeat.
said, "Well, do you want to go live on the street?"
Wow.
And I knew she was serious, and I was like, "No." And she goes, "So do you want to get help?" And I said, "Yes." She goes, "Are you going to do that?" And I said, "Yeah." So I went to outpatient for a while. And I also doubled up on therapy. Got everything straight with my psychiatrist. Got a new sponsor. And since 2020, I have done my steps again.
Nice.
And I've had a sponsee. Unfortunately, they've dropped off.
But so when you came back, so to speak, were there live meetings yet, or was it still just everything online?
When I came back, it was starting to open back up.
Okay.
And in the midst of like by the end of COVID, I moved from one area about an hour north of that.
Okay.
So now I'm in a different area,
Mm-hmm.
and which I'm grateful for because I needed that change. Because you can't stay stuck in the same surroundings and expect a different outcome if you are not willing to do the change yourself, especially.
Yeah, if you're hanging around a barbershop, you're getting a haircut.
Well, plus the dealer, the old people, places, and things, right?
Exactly.
So you were able to change that up. Live meetings are opening up again. You're getting the help you need.
Yeah.
And did you have a renewed sense of willingness to
Oh,
get clean?
absolutely. Absolutely. And then the way that my sponsor and I have gone through the book this time was completely different. My sponsor lives in Europe.
No
Wow.
kidding. Here we go. Is
Yeah.
this an online sponsor?
Yeah, well, I've known her for
Yeah.
years. She was here in the United States first.
Ah.
And we became close, and I asked her and she said yes. And so we've gone through the steps very differently this time, and she's done the work differently with me this time and exposed me to different aspects of myself this time. The willingness is beyond there. Besides the willingness to not drink or use, the willingness to live.
Right.
I was never good with holding a job because I was always drinking or high or whatever, and now I am finally at a job that I love.
So what was the
Doing
difference?
it.
What was the difference? You said you went through it a different type or a different way this time.
Well, every sponsor has a unique way of going through
Mm-hmm.
the steps with you. And I feel like the connection that we have on top of she reads it to me and I highlight, and then she'll give me homework and I'll do it. But like it took a while for me to get through some of them because
Mm-hmm.
she wanted to make sure I fully got it for myself instead of just, oh,
That's
let's
awesome.
just keep going. Because she knew my bullshit and she calls me out on it. And that's one of the best parts about her is, that. And my best friend who gave me up, thank God for her, she saved my life, and she is actually a therapist.
Huh.
So I know I annoy her, but having her helps a lot too when my actual therapist isn't around and I'm sitting there and I'm going, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm just so this and I'm just so that. And she'll be like, stop. Like, what are you grateful for?
So at this point in your sobriety, you're still attending meetings on a regular basis, right?
Yes. I have a home
practicing
group.
the steps. You have a home group, practicing the steps and working with others, right?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about your experience with step 2 and 3 and the spiritual side of the program? Any change you went through?
2 and 3. Wow. Okay. With step 2 and 3, I always grew up with a very loving God in my life. That's how it was brought to me. That's what I was taught. During the process, I gave up on him for a while and was like, you're just not there. You're not helping me. Like, I hate you. I'm mad at you. So on my first 4th step, I put God down.
Yeah.
And had to work through that. And after doing that, it was much easier to be able to move on to steps 2 and 3 because then now not only do I have the willingness and I believe, now in my heart after all of this, I know he's been there the whole time.
Sure.
So you had to kind of use a 4th step to get back to do 2 and 3 successfully?
Yeah.
Can you walk me through how that worked for you? Like, so you put on your list of character defects or resentments, you had a resentment against God.
Yeah.
How did you work through that?
It took a lot of time. Um, I filled my columns in,
Mhm.
and then when it came to my part, it basically turned out that everything was my fault because God doesn't make decisions for you. You make decisions for you.
Mhm.
Like, he might show you a path, but it doesn't mean that you have to take it. You know what the next right thing is in your gut, and he shows you sometimes the next right thing. So who am I to question what he has put in front of me? Like, anything that I did or said, or, it was on me. It wasn't on him. So I had to forgive him and forgive myself, actually. That was big too. I wrote a letter to myself from my 10-year-old self to now. And then I wrote a letter from my now to my 10-year-old self.
And that was very therapeutic for you and helped you to come to some kind of like an understanding or a middle ground where you could move forward with the relationship with your higher power?
Yes.
I
Yeah,
imagine some conversation came up when you brought that to whomever you did your fifth step with, right? When they saw that probably.
exactly. I've done my fifth step now 3 times. So the first time when God was on it, it was very difficult to do, having to admit all of those things out loud. But the second and third, he was not on it. And
Hmm.
they were easier. They weren't easier like, oh, it's just so easy to admit I'm wrong, obviously, but easier because most of my resentments that I had really carried around with me, I had released in the first time I had done them.
Sure.
So these were just newer resentments that had been coming up.
And so when you went back to 2 and 3, you got over your resentment against God, and there was some healing there between you and your spiritual self. And you looked at step 2 and said, well, yeah, I mean, I know there's a higher power that can help me. And then step 3 was basically letting go, right?
Yeah, the biggest thing that got me through step 3 was when someone said to me, you have the key. You have the key, and God is the door. And you have the key that fits into that door. So as soon as you're willing to open that door of willingness and put everything into it, because you have nothing besides your sobriety left, then you are ready.
What happened when you opened that door? What changed for you?
Based on
A
the
lot.
smile, I'm thinking a lot.
A lot. My my view on things, my perception on things, my being able to handle difficult situations with more clarity and more compassion, um being able to apply for a job and not just quit, but like put a 2-week in, and being able to apply for a different job that I love now and I'm stable at, making sure I'm staying, optimistic. And now I'm taking my meds as prescribed, and I'm keeping in touch with my therapist and my sponsor and my psychiatrist, and everything changed. And especially through this past year, I think the word that can describe my past year is perseverance.
Yeah.
I just never stopped. Even when I wanted to at points, I never, ever stopped.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's guaranteed that in sobriety you're going to be tested. That life is lifey, and there's no getting sober does not change that. What it can change is the way that we work with it. If we can get out of our own way, use the strength of a higher power in the universe, do the right things for the right reasons, not quit on ourselves and our sobriety. And, a big part of that for me is using the fellowship and the other
Oh,
people in the rooms.
immensely.
That kind of support makes everything possible.
Yeah, and right now, for the past few years, I've been involved in our local YPOC committee, and there are YPOC committees all over the place, all
So
over
what
the
is
whole United
YPA?
States.
Yeah,
Young
just for our
people.
listeners, it's the
Yeah,
young people's.
YPOC is young people in AA, but I want to make it very clear that you do not have to be young. The young is
Sure.
for young at heart.
Yeah.
So we have members that are in their 60s. And our mission statement is that we are a service committee of young people in AA. We host and attend events throughout the year to show that you can have fun and sobriety. We spread the message of hope, recovery, and unity to alcoholics. We learn to grow in our recovery through our involvement in service.
There you go.
And that's a winning combination.
Yeah.
How did you get involved in the YPA?
I was lucky enough that my second sponsor was already involved.
So she said, "Hey, I've got something you're going to like."
Yeah, and I
Right?
did.
And maybe some opportunity for service and stuff, right?
It is. And, we throw it's all over the United States. It's all over the UK. It's all over. You can find a YPOC committee anywhere in the world. And the best part is for the state committee, which they have one, everybody comes from everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's just a bunch of gratitude, a bunch of meetings, a bunch of fun, a bunch of fellowship, a bunch of service opportunity, and it's a beautiful thing. Some of the things my committee has done is like a dance, campouts, trivia nights.
Nice.
We mix everything up, and karaoke, dances, things like that, and there's always a meeting.
Right, because life's not over after we quit drinking, right? And
Right.
so you're making the opportunity exist that there's plenty to do, right? And have fellowship at the same time.
Can you talk to us a little bit about what your 6 and 7 was like? So you're working on your character defects. How did you go about doing that?
I listed my character defects out with my last sponsor. And what I did was I wrote the opposite of the character defects. Like where I was angry, I wrote peace.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to do that for all of them. And then we went through my character defects and why I was feeling them, like what brought them up. And because you kind of find that out throughout your fourth step. Because if you find a certain character defect is hitting all the time with certain people or certain ideas, you get a better idea of, where that's coming from. And then 7, handing my character defects over. I have to do that every day. That doesn't come with like, oh, you're done with step 6, you figured all these things out, now they're gone magically.
You're healed.
7, you do your 7-step prayer and then whoa, you're done. Like, no.
No.
Those character defects stick with you, and sometimes they go roaring on you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to rein it in and remember, what were those opposite words? What prayer can you say? And if I can't figure out a prayer, my automatic is the Serenity Prayer all the time.
It sounds...
Prayer of St. Francis.
I was just going to say
exactly. It always talks about the opposite, where I can be...
Right.
Yep.
Where there is darkness, light, where there is, anger, peace, whatever, forgiveness.
Yep.
So, we try to go the right way. Right. And boy, that's a different way for us, isn't it?
Yes.
Instead of saying, yeah, we're right, and they are an asshole, and they deserve this. And now we're like, wait a minute, that doesn't serve me, and it certainly doesn't serve anyone else. I need to go the opposite way.
Yeah.
And then you start doing that, and you start seeing the results of it in your own life, and how
and
you
people start
and you
to
see
like
a path
you
out.
again.
What's that?
people start to like you again.
Yeah,
imagine that.
And
yeah.
you'd start being have more serenity in your life. And, a lot of it, I think, by design is that we become more comfortable in our own skin and we lose the desire to escape through
Right.
drugs and alcohol. We're okay being where we are. And then things come up in life that challenge us and we're okay with it. We're gonna get through it. And the more you do it, the more that confidence compounds that you're gonna be okay.
Right.
You don't
Like
need
they
to
say, you
run.
have to, the first few years can be difficult because you're sitting in uncomfortable feelings.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You're not used to having all the feelings that you have because you're used to numbing them out. But when you turn around and you're actually facing those uncomfortable feelings and you're sitting with them, I mean, I have got whiteboards. I have whiteboards that I write things down on and I erase, or I've got a whiteboard and I write down my grateful list for the day and then I erase
Nice.
it and I write one the next day. And or if I'm really angry, I'll write down what I'm really angry about. And
then we've got this nice thing called the fellowship, which is more humans that have gone through the same thing we have, right? And
yeah,
so that helps too.
yeah.
Just like us.
And if I'm going
another
through
thing,
something like that, I'll call someone.
Right.
another thing I observe a lot is when I look back on before I had this design for living, the steps, of course I drank. Who wouldn't?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who can live like that
Hmm.
without
don't
seeking
know.
some kind of escape?
Yeah.
And we don't know what we don't know. So when they say your life is going to get better beyond your wildest dreams, this is what they're talking about, is getting rid of all that anxiety, self-doubt,
Fear.
all those
gonna say
negative
fear.
emotions. Is that you don't get rid of them completely ever, I don't think, but
No.
you get them to they become so manageable after a
Right.
while, and that need to escape and numb out, you're just not interested in.
Well, we
anymore.
have
You just
directions
don't
now
need
to
it.
get
Yeah.
through them, right?
Yeah.
We've got
Yeah.
directions.
And all the help we could possibly want.
That's right, as long as we're seeking it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now, now you can walk into a police station or a hospital or anywhere and just say, I need an angel. And they will get you someone and they will get you to a rehab.
Interesting.
Can you talk a little bit about the rewards of working with other people?
Oh, God. The rewards of working with other people are, I think that's what makes it beyond your wildest dreams. Because in the end, like, even if a friend is calling because they want a drink or they need help and they don't know what they're doing, and you calm them down and you bring them to this place where they don't anymore and they're okay, it's such a warm feeling when you help somebody that it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with just knowing that they're okay.
Yeah.
It's not really, I don't get any type of reward. I don't get any type of feeling of, yes, I did it.
Well, it's not for
and, like,
selfish reasons, right?
Like there's no self behind that. It's simply, I think that's what it is. It's a selfless gift.
Yep.
Right, like you're able to represent your higher power in
Being
this sense.
able to
There you
give a
go.
selfless gift is something that's beyond my wildest dreams.
Yeah, something that was never even considered before, right?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You did not want my advice a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's really interesting is once you get away from this self-centered ego that is our active alcoholism, and you start moving towards a spiritual self that is not self-centered and is giving, and you start making those changes, the rewards start coming pretty quickly.
And the world works with you.
Yeah, right. And it's so much more about the way you feel about yourself.
Oh, it is. I was just going to say that, like, with the 9-step promises, like, it's not about the material things. It's not about how much money you're making now or any of that. It really is about that connection you've made with your higher power, the the little things in life that you're grateful for, like having a roof over your head and food in your house and knowing you're going to wake up sober the next day and knowing you have that circle of people that you can call and connect and be honest with and open, and they're not going to judge you. Like, all of that is so important.
What advice could you give to a young woman who was in the same spot you were after you got out of hospital stay number 9? You know, where you were just floundering, and you know what can you tell someone?
Don't be afraid to admit that you're not okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to ask for help. Do not let the pride hit you before the fall.
Yeah, because
Nice.
it could be a final fall, right?
Oh, yes.
I mean,
it
that
very
kills a
well
lot of
could be.
people.
I've
Yeah.
lost many people.
Yeah, that's the nature of the disease, right? Well, we really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thank
and
you so much
love
for having me.
Yeah.
Yes, and until next time on the Glum Lot Podcast, I'm Mark.
I'm Brett.
I'm Melissa.
As we wrap up another episode of the Glum Lot Podcast, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you who tuned in today. Navigating the path to recovery from alcohol and other substances is a journey filled with challenges, triumphs, and self-discovery. Remember, we're not affiliated with Alcoholics Anonymous, but we're here to provide a safe space for open conversations about the complexities of recovery. Your stories, courage, and resilience inspire us and our listeners alike. If you or someone you know is on the transformative journey, know that you're not alone. Join us next time as we continue to explore the diverse facets of recovery. Until then, stay strong, stay connected, and remember that each day is a step towards a brighter, sober tomorrow. Thank you for being part of the Glum Lot community.